Well, there is a perception that the deaf community is very small. It's roughly, if you look at national statistics, it's roughly 10% of the population has hearing loss of some kind. We are the only state-affiliated university in the UNC system that offers deaf education, interpreter preparation, and advocacy. So it makes it very unique. Our program is very focused on being connected with the community. Our view on deafness is not that it is a disability, however, it is a culture. That the deaf community has a culture, and language is part of that culture. If you notice the weather reports, when we have a hurricane announcement, normally the governor is speaking and you'll see a sign language interpreter standing next to him. That's one of our graduates. However, they are also in the community interpreting doctor's appointments, interpreting for trainings, computer trainings, vocational, educational. They're in the school systems interpreting for elementary kids, middle school and high school. Our teachers are doing the same thing. They're in the school systems teaching.
If they've seen me, the National Folk Festival, took residency in Greensboro for 3 years, so I helped coordinate that. So it wasn't just me though, I had a whole team of interpreters. So you might have seen me some on stage, but I might have been also kind of in the background because I was working with a whole team of interpreters. Thank you. And I do a lot of concerts and graduations in Greensboro and around Greensboro. So you might see me at a random doctor's office or at a university, so I'm around. CODA, that's an abbreviation for Child of a Deaf Adult, whether you have one parent who is deaf or hard of hearing or two. So growing up in the home, that was the language that was spoken, so that's what I was exposed to.
I help to manage the volunteers and the advocacy students who come through our organization. I help to coordinate our captioning services for any individual that's hard of hearing but doesn't use American Sign Language as their primary communication. What does CSDHH want to communicate to the community at large? And it is that there is a massive value to awareness of the deaf community, to the accessibility of this community, and to the inclusion of it, because we would all stand to benefit from that exchange, that interaction with one another.
We're an agency that helps people find jobs or maintain their job. We gather the information about their disability because that's the only population we serve. Once we gather that information, we develop a plan of what services that VR is going to support. And like I said, the services like interpreting, job coaching, whatever it is that that client needs. And the best way to simplify that is, what are the barriers that's stopping them from working? I wasn't exposed to sign language because my parents didn't know much about that. Because I was just hard of hearing, I just wear hearing aids. Everybody speak loud, speak slowly. But I learned sign language when I started at UNCG. Learning sign language definitely opened my eyes to different culture. You always learn something new about yourself. Sign language, it just really opened my eyes that there is more, a way to communicate. It's a beautiful language. Yeah.
The challenge of learning to be an interpreter is a challenge. First off, because you have to develop fluency in the language. So you are making split-second decisions in the moment when you're interpreting, like for the governor. You're standing next to the governor, making choices as to what he is saying, and it's also the intent of what he's saying. His word choices convey a lot of information. His tone conveys a lot of information. The interpreter is responsible to convey that tone as well as word choices.
What's fulfilling is being able to see myself win. And what I mean by that is because of my personal struggle as a hard of hearing individual, I'm able to help someone succeed and reach their goals. So it's so fulfilling to know that I was once in a place of looking for something, now I can help them get that. So it's, when they call me and say, hey, Mr. Tim, I got a job, of course that's my job goal, but that's also my life goal, to see that people are succeeding in getting what they want.
A very fulfilling moment that I interpreted for President Barack Obama, and it was fantastic. One, it was President Barack Obama. So it was like a highlight in my career to say I interpreted for him, but more importantly was who was in the audience. There were several deaf people in the audience that day, but my dad was there. So that was fantastic. And not only that, my son and his father were there as well. So it was just, to me, that just felt like an all-time high to interpret for someone who I respect so much, the president, to have my father there and my son. It was just like, that was one of the best moments, I will say. Maybe it shouldn't be unexpected and surprising, but the gratitude. The gratitude specifically from the deaf consumers. I'm there for them, and so I have to earn their trust. And when I do, and later, after the assignment's done, when they say thank you, it touches me every time. I've been doing this for forever, and I feel like it always will. It's always very touching afterwards when someone says thank you. I really appreciate that, because to me, that's just like, okay, I did my job.
So CSDHH hosts a community appreciation event every year, and I believe this past year was our 34th annual event, and it always takes place the first Thursday in December. That's typically an attendance of 300 to 500 community members, deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, late deafened, you name it. They come all across the state for this one event.
Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow.
Last year was phenomenal. I mean, it was beautiful. All of us coming together, eating, having games, and winning different prizes. It's just a really great way to come together and uplift each other.
This year was a little bit different. Our theme was based off of public health, well-being, and different strategies to improving your well-being. So we added Zumba into the program.
Zumba has my heart. I'm a Zumba instructor, so I'm that guy that loves to dance and stuff. So I have done Zumba for the deaf. I teach in Burlington. Zumba is just a great way for me to teach people for 45 minutes just to have fun, sweat and groove. And so I think people are surprised, like, holy, like, you got hearing aids. I'm like, yeah. But turn that music all the way up, I feel that bass, and we just have a good time.
Interpreting is like a lifelong commitment. It's a language. You're interpreting a language, and languages are not stagnant, whether they're spoken or interpreted. And so there are always changes. There's always new terminology. There's always things to learn. You want to stay on things culturally, so it's always changing, and you have to stay abreast with the times, with the terminology, with the language, and you have to keep pushing yourself. And I'm a coda. I've been interpreting for forever. It's my native language, but I don't know everything, and I never will, so you have to continue. You have to have a thirst and love for the language and the culture.
So all I ask is for people to really educate themselves, get to know them, start up a conversation. Just because there's a language barrier doesn't mean that there's not a way to communicate with us or with them. And don't be scared. I tell people, do not be scared. It's okay. We're all the same blood, but we are different. Everyone is different.